know if something's happening. Okay. All right, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Reflection Cast following a wonderful, wonderful day of learning with the Impact Leading and Learning Group and their conference for reopening America's schools. I am TJ Hoffman, and I am the Chief Operating Officer at Sibme, and I'm very excited to host this sort of informal wrap-up for the day. And I'm really just killing time as people start to join. I'm starting to see some people joining us. And I'm hoping that this will be a nice informal conversation, a chance for us to sort of kick off our shoes and unwind for the day and just sort of talk about some big picture learning from this outstanding lineup of just some of the greatest thinkers in education and what they think about and what they have to say about how we will reopen our schools in the coming months, because we will, and the question really on everyone's mind is how. So I'm really excited to be joined by Stephen Carney and Jenice Pizzuto from the Impact Leading and Learning Group, who were the masterminds behind this 3-day conference, and I'm excited to sort of hand it off to you first and just sort of hear from you. You know, you guys were doing a lot of work hosting all these Zoom rooms over the past 9 hours. But I'm curious to hear just from your exposure to all these wonderful speakers, what you thought of the first day and what you think the big takeaways are for us.
Yeah. Well, Jenice and I, when we had put this idea together, the idea was really, it came from this mindset of there's a lot of noise out there right now. There's a lot of noise about what we should and shouldn't do about reopening schools and so on and so forth. And we just didn't want to add to that voice in regards to, it wasn't reopening schools, it was just how do we do the virtual learning? How do we do all these things that would happen in the last 2 to 3 months? And we just kind of sat back and listened. And then we just reached out to friends and colleagues and these presenters and said, would you be interested in just helping our colleagues, teachers and principals and superintendents and educators alike, just think about what should we take advantage of this time that we have right now? What should we be thinking about as we plan to reopen, however we reopen? And I think our presenters hit it out of the park. I think that they heard the calling. They took their message and really shared, I think, some really critical things. They gave us a lot to think about, and I'm hoping people walk away with, yes, full brains, but some real thoughts to bring back to their teams and to start thinking about, let's not forget this. Let's make sure we do this and open well.
Yeah, I would say Stephen and I thought for quite a while, for a couple of weeks, and our hearts were really hurting for educators. And we felt this pressing moral imperative to do something, anything. We didn't know what. And we had this harebrained idea. So let's see if we can serve people. And really, for those of you that are old enough, this is our Live AIDS concert for educators. For those of you that are not, it's our rock concert for educators, because everyone is thinking, and it's not to diminish the frontline workers in the health fields or our paramedics, but we really believe that our educators are those frontline workers too. And they're dealing with, if you're a principal, you're dealing with your own family trauma and crisis in this COVID-19 situation, but they also are thinking about their staff's family. You're thinking about your students, and not just your students, but your students' families. I have a friend that I walk with as part of my health routine, and she said that she has some she's a little health compromised, and her principal called her every Monday, just like they used to, because it's not just about the student, but it's the families. And so we're like, how can we help the educators across the US, and we have some globally, to feel empowered and inspired to move forward with the situation that we're faced with? And so that's where this Reopen America's Schools virtual summit came from. And I would agree with Stephen. I felt like all the way from when Michael Fullen spoke with us this morning, He said, action informed by contextual literacy.
Mm.
That, like, if you sit with that for a minute, action informed by contextual literacy, it means we need to take into before we make that action, what are the contexts around us? What's the culture? What's the climate? Why are we going to move forward? So that was something that really resonated with me from Michael.
Yeah, and I mean, I took, I wasn't managing Zoom all day long, and so I got to sort of sit back and really just drink it all in. And you referenced Michael Fullen, who sort of kicked it off with a just really great call to action. But I took 5 pages of notes from all of the things that I was learning from everyone, from Jim and from Anita Archer and Anthony Muhammad, who's one of my personal heroes, and
Absolutely.
Kent McIntosh. Just a great collection. You referenced Live Aid, and it really kind of is like, I mean, you got the greatest minds in education to come together and talk about not just how to reopen America's schools. And I think if I had to guess, there was a lot of response to this conference. A lot of people are very interested in learning what everyone has to say. And I think if I had to guess, a lot of people are walking into this conference at the very beginning thinking, okay, how are we going to do it? It's all about how. How are we going to, if we need to be in a fully virtual environment, what are the steps that we're going to do? And if we're going to be in some sort of blended environment, how are we going to do the master schedule? And all of those, I think back to my days as a school leader, you're very practically minded oftentimes, right? And so it becomes these logistical considerations, which are important. I'm not saying they're not important, but the thing that was sort of that, again, Live Aid, we are the champions moment, was that there was a moment that Anita said towards the beginning of her talk. She said, our goal hasn't changed, and then she just said, and our goal is learning and more learning and more learning and more learning. And then she quoted Michael Fullen and said that, what we need to do is make sure that we raise the bar and we close the gap for all students. And I thought, whoa, blew me out of the water. And I mean, I could go on and on and on. Amazing quotes from all of these people. But the central theme that I really got from all of these speakers, and that I'd maybe like to spend some time talking with you guys about, is that really what the past 3 months, or I don't know, 16 years, I can't really tell with time anymore, but what the past span of time has really done is uncovered existing flaws, existing holes that were in our education system, and made them even more apparent. And many of those things were about finding students who were not being reached before, and now are even more disconnected from learning. And that really what we need to do before we start thinking about those how considerations is remember that our goal and our job as educators is to reach and teach every single student. And so let's take a moment to really think about that goal, and then start to find, I'm a big fan of The Innovator's Dilemma, a great book from Harvard University, and that idea of opportunities for creative destruction. Destruction's a negative word, we don't like that word, but opportunities to break down existing systems that have not worked before we go back to them, and really think about that primary goal of reaching those students, and then think of maybe there's some opportunity here to really do some transformative thing. So I want to get questions from other people other than me.
Yeah.
I'm geeking out hard here. Like, I had a great time, and I'm really grateful that we got to spend the day together. But, if you have questions, if you're watching this live, or if you're catching this on demand, please put them in the chat, and we'll discuss those. But as we get that, Jenice, Stephen, what thoughts do y'all have on that idea of getting to really use this as an opportunity for maybe some creative destruction?
I think, TJ, that's exactly the statement. Yes, this crisis has exposed a lot of things that haven't worked in education. They're exposing the inequities, and they're exposing a lot of things that we've been talking about, that we knew has been a problem with our systems in education. But the problem is that we end the school year, and then we start the school year so soon that we don't have a whole lot of time to our leadership. I've been a principal, I've been in the district office, and we just go from year to year doing the best we can with what we know and have at the moment, and we don't have that opportunity to reset. Mm-hmm. This from our lens is a great opportunity to reset, because the things that Michael and Anthony and others talked about today are things that they've been talking about, the things that they're passionate about, that they've said we need to do in education. Now's the opportunity to say, let's just pause for a quick second and hit that reset button and really design it well and right from the get-go. And I think this is the opportunity that leaders have to do. So let's take advantage of Keith Myatt. You're going to hear from him tomorrow or the next day, but he has a great statement: is don't let a crisis go
a good crisis go to waste.
Go to waste, right? So this is an opportunity to really take advantage and just say, let's hit that reset button and take the things that we heard today and make sure they are part of our work and our systems and our planning and our classrooms, because we can make that happen.
Yeah, and I think resoundingly, one of the things we heard from our presenters today was to not overlook the human element, mm-hmm. right? Each and every one of them talked to us about that and how we can incorporate that into our redesign as we reopen.
Yeah, and I think you guys did an excellent job at the end of the day of really starting to think about how to take that idea of connecting people and turn it into reality, really inciting people to change and creating those implementation teams and recognizing that is not something, I've been a part of a lot of, district action committees and site-based decision-making committees and all those sorts of things, which are great. I'm not denigrating them at all, but you really pointed out that this is an opportunity for transformation,
right?
But not something. And in fact, actually, one of the participants said something in the chat that I really liked during Michael's session. He said, "We can't believe that any disruptive change will automatically lead to any type of sustained transformation." I'll credit David Culberhouse for saying that, one of the participants today. But that's really true, that it's going to take an opportunity to connect people and engage them in meaningful dialogue that really results in professional change for all of the professionals in the building, from the superintendent at the district level to the principals on the campus level to every single teacher, paraprofessional. Every professional engaged in this incredible work is going to have to be engaged in that way, and it's going to take time. It's not going to happen, in a month or 3 months or 6 months. It's going to take years to really make the type of transformation that I think everyone's calling for.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You're right.
But do that now.
Do we have some questions from the group?
Yeah, so there was one person who asked some logistical questions. So Leslie asked, I found the graphic regarding the decrease in student engagement in Lightning as we continue to push academic focus over project-based learning and vocational education that students tend to find more relevant and motivating. I believe we will maintain the stagnation of education. So what do you think about that? And I tried to pull it up and I wasn't able to grab it, but I believe she's talking about something that Anthony posted or had, but maybe I'm wrong. What do y'all think about that?
Will you put that back up for us?
Yeah. Sorry.
That's a big question.
It covers you up, Stephen, so that's why.
That's okay. I look like that guy on
the Wilson over the fence.
It's okay.
So she's talking about pushing academic focus over project-based learning and vocational education, right? So I don't think it's an either or, right? It's around that learning piece. I don't think that, I'm trying to think if it was Anthony. I don't know which presenter it was from, because I'm not quite sure what the graphic was.
Yeah, I'm. That's a good question. You know what? I don't know what graphic we're talking about, but I sure I would see it. I was navigating Zoom the whole time, so um, uh, yeah, I think Jenice is right. I think it's in either or. I think what we advocate for is that we do know what works in teaching and learning. There is a lot of evidence. I mean, Hattie's got an incredible research base around what works, and project-based learning is not at the top of that list. And so let's take this opportunity to remove the things that we know haven't been effective and have truly impacted learning, and really go after those things that are at the top of that list, and then get into that study and get into that research and go, what did it look like when we implemented that right and well, and do that. So I think this is more of an opportunity to do away with some haphazard approaches, do away with some things that we've hung on to for years that haven't always worked, and let's push forward and go, but we do know what works, and let's take advantage of those things, and now let's start planning to do that well and right.
Yeah.
I think that the graphic that she's referencing, and again, totally a guess, just because I was monitoring the Facebook chat during the day, and she posted this sort of about the time that he was speaking, but but Anthony posted or had a slide in his presentation with it was very simple, 2 arrows, and he spent some time talking about invitation versus guarantee, and that one of them is sort of a predetermined set of learning objectives, and he talked about the buffet and how, it's just sort of, hey, y'all come and get it, versus a guarantee to help students build on their own personal intelligence and use that to bring them towards mastery of these different learning objectives. And I'm wondering, I don't know if that's what she's talking about, but I do like that it's thinking about a system that is inclusive, rather than just sort of enticing, but actually, actively brings people in.
Yeah. TJ, thank you so much. I have my book open to quotes from Anthony because, that's so many, but it really was just a jarring and affirmation moment, because really what you're talking about, he said, I've never had a teacher that didn't want me to learn, right? None of us, nobody shows up saying, I don't want this to work. But I have, when I was a teacher and when I was in administration, there's times where I have been faced with this mindset of, I've provided you the opportunity and my responsibility ends there. And that's kind of what he was talking about. And I think one of the problems we do face with project-based learning is it's more opportunity focused rather than learning focused. And then Anita kind of followed him up with, what we do is we teach you until you learn it, right? Just because I've taught it doesn't mean you learned it. So I have to find a new way to go at it, and I find a new way to go at it. And that's where we can move that engagement lens, where we're going to have multiple avenues and pronged approaches to help students get to where they are learning. We're not going to just accept that, oh, they didn't learn it. We have to figure out, how can we do it? And that means pulling my team together. It means asking my teachers. It means looking at the research. It's thinking about, how can we get this student what they need to learn forward.
And Michelle and Teresa are suggesting that maybe it was Michael Fullen's presentation, which very well could be. I mean, like I said, I was just using time, but she is talking about engagement over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that in this new environment, where there's a possibility that at least some of the learning takes place not in a classroom, that there's a danger that mindset of, well, I created the Zoom room, or I sent you the materials, or I had the packet in the parking lot, that's an even more dangerous opportunity to say, well, we taught it, without actually taking the opportunity to say, but did they learn it?
Yeah.
And that's important. Well, so we don't have many other questions, and I don't obviously want to belabor the point. I know you guys have got to be completely exhausting, but I do want to just return. Janet referenced something that Stephen, you said a couple times during the day. You know, you were talking about going far and going short. So Janet, this is actually, I think, a quote from Jim: "Go slow to go fast." We're going all kinds of directions, and it sort of made me think about. I went for a little walk after your session, and I was walking my dog, and I was thinking about that great African proverb: "If you want to go far, go together. If you want to go, if you want to go, no, if you want to go, yeah, no, I was right. Go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone." But you know that we got to know where we're going first, and I think when you talk about implementation teams, that's really a big part of that. Is the opportunity now is to really define where we're going. And I wonder if you guys have any sort of just final thoughts about, as schools are thinking about where they're going to be headed in the fall in the face of all of this uncertainty, knowing that the goal is, I was really excited to see this book referenced several times. Here's my very yellow paged copy of it. Oh, I ran and grabbed it because it's one of my favorite books too. But if the idea is that education is supposed to be a tool of liberation, and that it is supposed to be something that breaks down that gate and allows every student in, then what is the next step for these people who want to maybe try and move closer towards that ambitious goal that will connect those people in that work? So engaging the human element in that work.
So I have in front of me the slide that Michael shared this morning, and I think it actually wraps up more or less kind of the theme throughout the entire day. And he talked about the right drivers and the wrong drivers.
Yeah.
And he talked about the right drivers, talk about capacity building. Well, that was everything that, when Michael's talking, or Jim was talking about better conversations. That's all about capacity building. Collaborative work was the right driver. Pedagogy is another right driver, and systemness. And combine those pieces together, that's going to get us to the right place. I think when we're so focused on those wrong drivers, accountability, individual teacher, and leadership quality, focusing too much on the technology as if that's the total complete answer, and then fragmented strategies. And I think that's his message. I think really wrapped it up as the clear next steps is take hold of those drivers. You heard today a lot of people reference those drivers in their own work.
Yes. Yeah.
And so for me, I think that would be take those four pieces to heart and ensure that that's part of your plan moving forward, is that you're focused on capacity building, collaborative work, pedagogy, and systemness.
Yeah, well said, Stephen. I think that's
we had a couple
impact. Yeah.
We had a couple people ask the name of the book, and I put it in the chat. It's Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, I think is how you pronounce his last name. It's a short little book, but it will take you a very long time to read because you'll read 2 pages, start crying, and put the book down. But it's a great book. Well, I really want to thank you both, and I don't know if there's any preview that you want to provide of tomorrow or anything for those of us who are going to be joining you. Anticipate.
Yeah, well, we do. We're going to start the morning out with Dr. Billy Snow, amazing transformational leader. He's done a lot of turnaround school work. We're really excited. We've seen a glimpse of his PowerPoint. It's amazing. We're also going to see Stephanie Arznati-Height, who works and has a new book coming out with Jenny Donahue on collective advocacy. So absolutely powerful, super, super excited about that. And then for us who are thinking about systems work in MTSS and how do we get that going, we have 2 people from SWIFT, Dr. Holly Peterson and Amy Jablonski, are going to really talk about getting our MTSS system up and rolling. And of course, Zaretta Hammond was referenced as a favorite book today. When they asked me, "What are you reading?" Like, "Oh, I have Zaretta Hammond." Well, she's going to be with us tomorrow and talking about culturally responsive teaching and the brain. And we're also going to have some representation from special education with Dr. Leanne Young, and she's going to talk about assessment and multiple different modes of thinking about assessment for students. And we're going to close the day out on communication with an amazing communication expert. If you don't know about her yet, you will be buying all her books. Jennifer Abrams has some new work coming out, and it's really interesting because she talks about generational communication, and she has all the research on, the Gen Z, the Gen, all this, and how we all come together and those needs. So I can't wait to hear all of them. So thanks for that question. I was like,
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of people I'm a big fan of. I got to spend a whole day with Jennifer Abrams back, and it's going to be a great session for everyone. You're going to love it.
Awesome.
So I do just want to give a momentary plug for those, just because there was a question at the end of your session about professional development and about the work that happens. Sibme is also presenting our little Live Aid, a free conference coming up at the end of June that will be focused on transforming professional development. So ways in which schools can continue to engage in that ongoing job-embedded, evidence-based dialogue of professional development. It's called the Better Together Conference. It's free and available to anyone. I just put the link to register for it in the chat. We're very excited to have Elena Aguilar headlining the conference, and we think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're interested in continuing to learn after these 3 wonderful days, you can take about a month break, and then we'll have that conference at the end of the month.
That's awesome.
Great.
So,
Great
Jenice,
you guys have.
Look forward to being a part.
Yeah, absolutely. Jenice and Stephen, thank you so much for the opportunity to do this, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you, TJ. You're awesome.
I appreciate it. You're awesome. Thanks to Sibme again. Appreciate it.
Bye.
You.
Thanks.
Bye.